So yeah, so if you could send me that link, then I'll send it to them.
Yeah, sure. I'll do that. Looks like our class just arrived.
Yeah, they just arrived. I guess it's just 3 o'clock. Yeah, 3:01. I guess they're not let in. They're not let in before 3. So.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Did everybody have a good reading week?
Good afternoon. Hi, Joseph. Hi, everybody. They sound the hellos sound refreshed. Am I right? The hellos sound refreshed. Yes. It's good. We'll just wait a few minutes, I guess, see who else.
Sounds good. Did anybody do anything halfway interesting for reading week? I know this is unusual times, but did people get to relax or do something out of the ordinary, or did you all have assignments? Oh, good. Lots of hikes. That's what I did too.
That's good.
The leaves are so beautiful. It's mostly yellow looking ground now. They've fallen a lot, but it was so pretty for hiking.
Cooking and baking is good too. Did you try new recipes, Cassidy? Agreed.
Oh, this is Niagara Falls.
Very nice.
Fun.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Macarons. Oh, wow.
Oh, if only we were meeting in person. Last year on the last day of class, we were able to bring in some coffee and tea and cookies, and it was really nice. But this virtual world doesn't quite allow for the same kind of gathering.
No.
And Niagara Falls seems like a big deal, actually. I've only gone between really Burlington and Oakville, so.
So my cousin, Shelley, who's she's an architect for Perkins and Will in San Francisco. So she had a holiday, and she lives in San Francisco. So she went to Palm Springs.
Oh.
Stayed at a place called the Park, where apparently it was so cheap, the price of one night. She paid the price for one night for 3 nights.
Wow.
So, because I guess no one's going. And then she went to the Joshua Tree. So, yeah. You know, everyone's local, right? We're doing local things, so that was local for her. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Niagara Falls. Yeah, I love Niagara Falls. I feel like it's a real vacation going to Niagara Falls. It's a complete change of scenery for me, and you know, you're away from your routine, and I don't know.
That was my last big outing before COVID struck, because we went to Niagara Falls for New Year's Eve last year.
Oh, nice.
A huge concert with Walk Off the Earth, and there must have been 30,000 people there for a free outdoor concert, and it was so much fun. But now, now that's the thing of the past. Class trip to Niagara.
Oh, that's good, Katja. No lines, no lineups. That's good.
Yeah.
I know, Laura. I would love to do a class trip to Niagara. Actually, it's a great place to sketch. If you can stand back, you know, obviously stand far back, but sketching the falls, I've done that before. It's quite beautiful because the motion of the waves, and quite nice. Brian, I know, went somewhere interesting.
Oh, I think you have your audio on there, Cassidy. You're welcome.
Sorry about that. It reconnected me and I guess turned it on.
That's okay.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So it looks like we have a good turnout here. 31. Do you want me to start with sharing my screen, Anais?
Sure.
And I guess
I think let's stick to just your screen so that the back and forth we don't have any problems.
Okay. I just thought you might want for the slides, but I'll start the recording then. Yeah, now that we're done our chit chat about Niagara Falls, but Anais and I have tried to build in a little bit of extra interactivity with you today, just to get your thoughts a little bit. So let me share my screen. Okay, And then if I go back to our Slate site, oh, I need to start the video, I guess. We're gonna record the whole.
Do you want to show the announcement first, just to make sure everyone?
Sure, yeah. Although I don't know if we need the recording before the slides. Maybe we don't.
Maybe not.
Okay. So if anybody missed our announcement for this week, this is what we're looking at for today. So already week 7 of 13, so our weeks are flying by. We have a very quick little Mentimeter like we did last week to see how everyone felt about kind of online Zoom meetings. And today it's just about data. And then we have more of the sort of shorter lecture piece that is slides going over data and how to represent data. And I guess we can say what we mean by data here is what you have collected from your research instruments. So from your interviews or consultations or surveys. And if you don't have numbers to display, we will work with you and find something to display visual, because it's really just about visual representation. And then we have, hopefully it's fun, a short Socrative quiz. So if you haven't used Socrative, it's very much like Kahoot. If you've used that, just some online questions where you can input answers on a laptop or a phone or a mobile device, and we'll just kind of ask some questions based on the slides and see how everybody does. And then any question and answer period plus we'll walk you through the next part of the assignment, because of course it all builds on each other to a final report and poster presentation, but everything we're doing each week is just sort of a next step in one big assignment. Do you want to add anything there, Nace?
No, I just want to make sure that they understand that they're almost like 2/3 of the way there already. You guys have been building since last term. You've done your lit review. You've now gone out and collected your data. Now it's a matter of putting it together and then writing the report, putting in an abstract and a conclusion, talking about your findings, talking about your biases, and then the critical 5 takeaways at the end. And then, of course, the poster, which is a summation of the work. So you guys are really 2/3 of the way there already.
Yay.
I don't know if you noticed, but about COVID on TV. 2 days ago, I saw a restaurateur, the fellow that owns Paramount Fine Foods, and they put up pie charts. This is like a precursor to her. They put up a bunch of pie charts showing, the percentage of people that are getting COVID from, going to restaurants and bars versus going to school, and the percentage that are getting it in nursing homes. And I thought to myself, that was very interesting because it was very graphic and it really made me very curious.
I can't see your screen, Anais, because I'm sharing mine, but your sound is breaking up just a little bit.
I'll take my image off. This class, I swear this class is let me take my image off and maybe that'll be better. There. Is that better?
It's fine right now. Okay, and just see if anybody had put anything in the chat. Not yet. So I'll go back into our content for, sorry, wrong tab. Here, back into our content for week 7. And if you click on content, you'll see the link for Mentimeter. And if you just click on that, I will share our screen with our results as they come in. But we're asking you today, again, this is totally anonymous, and we'll create a word bubble together and see what comes to mind when you hear the word data. So we can talk a little more about what it is and how we represent it. But if everybody wants to click on the link for Mentimeter, put 3 words or phrases and submit. Then we'll see what we all come up with. So you can do that right now. Let me know if you have any issues. Maybe, Anais, you can let me know if there's anything in the chat that I'm missing. Nope, there we go. It's coming in. So, there we go. Yay. Very cool. I like this site. You should be able to see now your results coming in. So they're kind of reorganizing themselves every now and then when new words are added. But we have information, numbers, results, research results, fact, collect, accurate, collecting, analytics, math, charts, surveys, analysis, details, gathering. Collect has been there a few times. Good. Statistic, figures, beneficial findings, computer. Yeah, for sure. We're using all digital this time around. Figures. So I don't know if everybody got a chance to add their word, but our word bubble, I would say, is very much on track with what we're going to be talking about today. So it very much is the results that we're getting back from our surveys or interviews. And we'll talk more about how our findings really are just the facts, or our data. It's the facts, and it can be represented as numbers, percentages. Someone has here math. So later on in the process, we'll get into adding some interpretation. But for now, this is what we're looking at, is the facts, the numbers, what you collect, what your findings are. Yeah, the results of your surveys. Did you want to add anything again, Anais?
I think that's it. I moved rooms. So
Oh, okay.
I'm hardwired in now. No, I think that's exactly right. I mean, this is, and you'll find the best way to represent your findings, because, you know, as Shelley said, like, you may not have a lot of data, so we'll work with you to kind of figure out how best to represent it. But graphic representation is a very important part of this part of the paper.
Very good. So hopefully anyone who wanted to add their words or phrases was able to, but I really like this actually as a sort of graphic or visual representation of the words that come to mind for this class when we say the word data. So I'm going to reduce that. Basically, that was our introduction to our slide about representing the data. We'll get more into it, but the data is the information that you're collecting from your survey. If you hear the word knowledge, and you'll find slightly different definitions for these things, but the data really, it's what you're finding out from your research. But once you've gone and added some context to it and some more meaning to it and implications from it, that's when it becomes more knowledge. So right now we're at the data collection stage. Close that window. So I can open up our slides then, Anais? Is that what you think is best? I'll open them up.
So, yeah.
Okay. And then I will start our recording. I haven't been recording yet, but since we'll go back here and open up the slides, that's where I'll start the recording in case anyone wants to refer back or in case anyone is absent today. So I'll open this up and start the recording. Yeah, I guess we can just share it this way then, Anais, because I wasn't sure if you wanted to do more of this part, but let me start the recording and I can still be the driver. Okay, so just so the class is aware, I'm starting our recording now. And I'm going to share our slides. So here we are, week 7. And the sort of lecture portion of our class today is presenting research results. You can follow along on the screen, but this is also in your slate. Is that showing okay there for the size?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I mean, do you want to start walking us through it, Anais?
Sure. We can both contribute to all the slides, so we'll just do it that way, I think. So there's again from one of our texts from there is the end of textile quota. Is China going to be the big bad wolf? The December 2004 New York Times article presented detailed information about textile quotas. So information about the quotas of textiles. The same information is presented in 2 different ways. So, because you can show information in many ways, so it's presented in 2 ways: a tabular format and a pie chart format. So, we're asking you, which one do you think is better? Any comments? Detailed. The key here is detailed information about textile quotas. 2 different ways: tabular format and pie chart format. Which one is better? Anybody want to say anything? Tabular? Juliana, do you want to explain why you think that's the right answer?
Well, from what I'm remembering, a pie chart is just a graphic visual of like kind of percentages, versus tabular sounds like it's a chart of some sort with text. If you're saying that the key part is detailed.
Yeah, because detailed information this time, right? Okay, good. That's good. So here it is, the textile quotas in a tabular format. And, going by country, and then the percentage imports, textile exports is a percentage of total textile exports. You can see that the numbers, of course, will add up to 100%, with, of course, China being the highest exporter, and then it goes all the way down and declining sort of in different orders. And you can see that, as you mentioned, Boyana, tabular information, a lot of data is represented in this way. Anything you want to add, Shelley?
No, not really. I agreed with Buena that because it's a detailed, tabular or more table format makes good sense. And we'll get into looking at what a pie chart would look like. And there it is.
There it is. Okay, so here's how that information will be conveyed as a pie chart. So graphically, you can see it's colorful. You can see, the large swaths of area representing, China and others gathered sort of together as one big piece, and then the other players that are there. So you can see the information is represented in a different way. How effective do you guys think this way is to show the information? Do you think it's somewhat effective or not at all effective? Where would this be effective? In what context would this representation be effective? Yeah, that's right, somewhat. If this was a TV show, if you're trying to, if it's news and you're trying to get information across quickly, broad generalizations, you don't care about numbers, you just want to show kind of graphically the large swaths that China represents and versus all the others combined, then this might be a good way to show it. Yes, that's great, Cassidy. It's true. A PowerPoint or a presentation, that would be a really great way to reach an audience that may not be sophisticated or may not really want to know all the details of the actual numbers, but may just want to have an idea, a sense of percentages. Anything you want to add, Shelley? Jump in anytime.
Yeah, I know. I would just say thank you. I would just say that probably for most people, this image is more appealing than this one. Like you said, you lose some of the data with the pie chart. So we could guess that that proportion in China is close to 30 or so percent, but we're not going to know necessarily 31.1. And then all of these smaller, like 2 and 1%, Mexico, Britain, Pakistan, Indonesia, we're not seeing those even listed here. So for sure, we've lost some of our data, but that table would be something that you could include in a report, even potentially in an appendix, whereas this looks more appealing if you're trying to get people over to your poster for a poster presentation so you can talk to them about textile exports. It's just easier to kind of start up a conversation and have someone drawn to it. It's quicker and easier to look at and get sort of the big picture, whereas the table gives you the kind of finer details.
And also, Shelley, I was just thinking as you were talking, you know, these guys have all taken color theory. And so what do you guys know about using colors like reds and fuchsias and bright colors? What does that do to a presentation in terms of selecting the bright color for China? Yeah, it's more engaging. It's more alarming, actually, right? Bright colors, yeah, more engaging, I'd say more alarming, grabbing attention, exactly. And that's intentional. And that's something you guys can control as well if you choose to represent your data in a pie chart. Subliminal messaging.
All right, so move on. Here we have the pie chart.
Go ahead, Shelley.
Well, I was going to say we have the pie chart here with the entire breakdown. So very different looking than the last one because it is kind of cut up into many more pieces. I don't know how you feel about that. It's kind of a step further than the last pie chart and trying to show more what we had in the table, but as a pie chart. So I guess I'd be curious to know which people's preference is, the table or this second pie chart with all of the countries shown. Almost all.
Yeah.
Is this overwhelming to look at? Do people prefer this or the tabular? I can't see the chat, by the way.
Oh, sorry, Shelley. Yeah, so yeah, Laura's saying a table. Morgan is saying definitely the table. Yeah, they're all saying the table.
Okay, so the pie chart was good when it was bigger numbers, and then maybe table when it's broken down more granular.
Yeah, because at this point you kind of want numbers, and things seem too similar, and it's, as you said, it's hard to digest. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Laura says with the table you have a definitive answer. Yes, the numbers. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay, so here we have a bit of a comparison written out. So tabular format is better if there are many categories, and that's the conclusion that you all came up with, because that second pie chart was just a little bit harder to read when there's so many categories and you have the slice to look at and then you have the label as well. So that's where the tabular format was good. And pie charts, better than tabular format when the number of components is smaller. So that was the first pie chart that we saw where they did have the same data to represent, but the textbook, the creators of the textbook decided in that case to lump some of the smaller percentages together as other. So in that case, they were able to have fewer categories to show. Information can be lost when there's a collapse of the number category. So that was our other category. And not useful when there are numerous components and the relative sizes of the components is not very different. So that was the last one that we saw. So right here, what you're seeing is there are places for both pie charts or tables, and it really depends what you're trying to present, where you're trying to present it, who you're presenting it for, what will be sort of the best option for you.
No, I agree with Shelley 100%. Like this key point under pie charts, information is lost when there's a collapse of the number of categories. So that may be the intention. So if that is the intention, to gloss over details and present sort of abstractions of proportions, then that's where it's relevant. But again, clearly you're losing information, and if that information is desired, that would not be the right way to do it. But on television, it seems to be a great way to show information.
Yeah, and I mean, report can allow you to do both, where you could have that really nice visual, the pie chart in the body of the report. And then if you want to give the breakdown that is more granular in the appendix or the end of the paper, you could do that, and then you could include both, but you wouldn't really put both for a poster presentation, because the point there is to really have a visual representation. So you'd be better off with just one of those options, and then more of the information in the report.
And we'll show you samples of posters later on in the term.
Okay, so that was tables and pie charts. And the next section of our slides is about graphical illustrations.
So these are, yeah, we'll see them. They're different ways to represent things so that they're visually appealing. And you've seen pie charts, there are line charts, there's stratum charts and bar charts.
Okay, and there should be examples for each.
So here's an example of a table. It's a little hard to read, but market share of 6 toothpaste brands. So showing you the years and then the different brands and the percentages for the various years of the different brands. And you can see how, I mean, you can read through this and see how brand X, had a higher percentage, higher market share in 1996, and then a declining, kind of varying percentage. The last year was 2005. It held 18%. So it kind of varies along the way. Then it continues with different other brands, brand A, brand B, brand C, brand D, and brand E, showing you how their percentages, their market share, changed over the years that the information was gathered. So you can see trends, they can see trends, you can interpret trends, you can see trends between brands, you can see brands that are emerging, brands that are declining in terms of market share.
And you can see, because it's gone from 1996 to 2005 with 6 different brands of toothpaste here, that it's just too much to have in just a pie chart or a bar graph, because you've got so much information. You just have all of these years, all of these brands, so a lot of numbers to display. We'll move to another type then.
So again, now showing this information in terms of pie charts. So you can see how now all that data has been collapsed. You no longer see those percentages. You now start to see it as a percentage, as an area of the pie chart. And you're contrasting one year to another, and you can see how the different brands have increased or decreased depending on the specific year that it's represented, without having numbers, or just showing you approximations of a percentage of the pie chart. And again, look at the colors. Whatever it seems to be larger, and we want them to come forward, because you guys know, they're all designers. You guys know that some colors come forward, some colors recede on a plane. So the idea here is, the intention is to bring the larger brands, the ones that have a greater market share, to kind of bring them forward and have the other ones recede.
Very good. So yeah, here we have lost some of our numbers and some of our data, but we have a much more visually appealing or kind of easier to read graphic, but we've lost so much of the data that we're now just comparing 2 years rather than having all of the years in between. So again, it's who you're presenting the information to, what they need to know or would be interested in. And then you decide what's the best way to display it. So for 2-year comparison, you could opt to use pie chart, but just knowing that you're losing a lot of the data. You're not displaying it.
I was just going to add, Shelley, because if they wanted to display pie charts for all the years and put them all together, that would be extremely confusing to have them all. This seems to work as it's, you know, one to the other. But if they tried to represent all those years individually together like this, it would be hard.
Yeah. Okay.
Line charts. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we have the same information here. We're just seeing it displayed differently. So a line chart showing the years at the bottom, the different toothpaste brands on the right-hand side. And this does allow you to see year by year what the differences were in the market share. And you can see in some cases, brand A, it's gone up in 1997, it's gone down in 1998. So again, you can see those trends over the years of the market share going up and down, and you can compare between the different brands. So it's, again, visual. You've got a use of color here. You have more of the data represented because you're able to go across and see what the market share percentage is because it's along the left-hand column.
And I would say this is also a very typical approach for trying to read stock market trends. If you're trying to follow a stock over time, I typically tend to look at this kind of a line chart when I review what's happening, but then I like to go in more detail and see the months when the peaks happen in the years. So that's a further detail that wasn't required here. But again, these are really good ways to see long-term trends.
All right.
Again, I've never been a fan of this approach, so if you want to talk about it, stratum charts, I mean, I find these, I don't know, this doesn't really strike me as a way I would ever represent information, but I don't know. What do you think? Have you used stratum charts?
Personally, I haven't. Yeah, I feel like the other was maybe easier to look at and understand what the numbers are that are being displayed. I actually just submitted, it was due today, a second draft of a book chapter that's being published, and I had numbers that I represented in a table. I thought table was the best approach because I had different questions and numbers of student responses, basically on almost like a Likert scale, like asking a question, and then if a certain thing is not very important, somewhat important, important, very important. And they actually asked me, because of space in the book, to not display it as a table, and I had to just turn it into percentages and then describe it in words. So more my experience has been with, I would say, tables and percentages, but yeah, this is just another option that is available to people. All right, and then we have similar information here as bar charts. So the page that we're looking at has 2 different years represented. So again, we started with a table with a range of years from 1996 into the 2000s, and saw all of the market share numbers for 6 different brands. But to present it visually, we're now comparing only 2 different years. But I think you can see then by looking, and I just mentioned the use of color. So if we look at brand A, maybe in 1996, it was just shy of 30%. And then in 2005, it's dropped a little bit, but it's stayed relatively close. Whereas you can see some of the other ones, like Brand X was at 30% and has dropped by 2005 to more like 18%. It's under 20, over 15. So this is another way, sort of like we have the 2 pie charts, to have that visual representation of 2 years being compared to 6 different brands with the market share for each year. Use of color, but in this case, rather than pieces of a pie, just presented as bars.
We have a comment from Laura and Cassidy. I don't really not understand the difference between the line chart and the stratum chart, besides visual representation. The only difference between the 2 is that they still have an X and Y axis, but with each line being different thicknesses. Because the stratum shows the thickness of the space, whereas the line is just a single line representation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to look up see if there's any kind of definition that would help us, but I feel like it is still basically the same, other than where it's colored in.
Yeah. Again, yeah, that's what it appears to be as well, because it's showing you the line graph, but then it's showing you sort of like the mass underneath the line. So maybe it's better. It helps you to sort of understand the peaks and the valleys better, because now it's shaded to show the range.
Mm.
Yeah, again, I've never used the strata. I mean, where would you use the stratum chart? Because I've never used the stratum chart. I don't find it that effective, but maybe it's, I don't know, where would you use, just because we've never had any student use it, and we've never, in design, it's not been a very popular method of representation, right? I mean, I would probably always use a line chart over this, because you can then, more clearly differentiate. I find that the shaded area, showing amounts, that's all I can sort of gather from that. Anything you've gathered, Shelley, from your researching?
Not really.
No, it's not very. Yeah. Well, I think if there's something that we find later, because we haven't used this very much ourselves. Yeah, it's not something that we just want to present it, but I can't think of an instance where I use this as a line chart. I still see the line, as you guys mentioned in the data, you guys can still see the line showing the dips and the valleys and the peaks for various years, but it's just showing the area below it. So. Yeah, I don't know particularly the strategy. You're welcome, guys. Okay.
Yeah, I think the definition I found here is really what you described as that. So more like highlights line charts contains a set of line charts, quantities aligned to group together. Variables are read with reference to time, which is represented on the x-axis. Each of the line on the y-axis represents the value dependent on variables and the influence of one variable over the other. So it really is like line chart, but I will color version, really. But I think it's whichever preference. But yeah, I mean, I've only did this course for couple years now, but I haven't seen anybody present using this way.
And I haven't either.
Yeah.
I think maybe a marketing presentation. Some kind of a marketing pitch or marketing presentation. But not really to design. Not really getting design research. Good question, guys.
Okay. This has more information about the
It just has more information about the bar chart. It's going year by year, showing you how the different brands fluctuated and vary throughout the years. So I don't mind my approach just to further pure. I'm a purist. I prefer the pure bar charts. It's usually a good idea of how brands are doing relative to each other with respect to each year, so you can see the trends.
Yeah, I feel like there's more to that here, and it's I think that we're aiming to take on because all the brands, all the years, all the market share, but I feel like it's not necessarily a clear looking at 1 year compared to what it was.
I think one thing to remember is the message should be clear and too much information. Shelley, really too like it can muddy the information. It might be too much information. So I kind of this was like that brand ideas of all the other brands. What's the percentage market share? Yeah, that's one. And Strata is this one. Not my favorites. Not my favorite application. Go back. See the numbers for his brand ID.
They were on the list. So it's a smaller amount we're looking at, but I think that was a huge because when you got here, there was research about 100. But it actually was in those numbers like 6%. That were much smaller. So it's not even it's sort of that is worth 180. So that would be 10. So it's less than 10. So it's not. I think it's not a lot of superior looking. There are some numbers. They need from 4 since the lowest up to 8 as the highest. So it feels less like brand E. That's still not the most market share than that's. It's also it's not what this is supposed to be showing. So probably not as superior as I'm sure choice, but I'm sure it shows much information share.
The pure bar charts you saw in these slides is much more effective than this one. It is confusing, and that's why, again, the message should always be clear. Sometimes similar is better.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is a little trickier to read.
That's a good question, Laura. We appreciate it. Yeah. Because it's good to know what all your options are, and then you can from that you choose what's the best options and you can represent the different data that you've collected as best options. Require our audience to understand the information you're conveying, and if your audience is going to be confused, then your message is not going to be communicated. That's all.
This is what we're just looking at around the organization of one-way rate and two-way combinations. Terms can be used to priority, summarize information contained in one-way and two-way combinations, which is widely used procedures and analyze survey data and are practical research objects. So I think sort of what Nate was saying is that if you have less that you're showing, it's clearer to add and easier to read and understand. But because they're showing their so many brands, affiliators, a bunch of the market share, slides where it gets confusing, but if we just had brand X over all those years, or maybe we'll get to one that looks like this, brand X compared to brand A. You have the green bars are like a purple bar, year by year, with your percentage over here. It's easier to read than when you have so much here that you're trying to present.
Yeah, absolutely. And then think about your audiences. I mean, if it's a sophisticated audience, it's like your general population, like what's your audience? And that's what you have to think about as well when you're communicating information and results from your data collection. So this is just an example of an organization called the Rover Organization that basically conducted a personal interview survey of American youth, and then we'll show you how they got the results to be represented.
Sorry, no, too far ahead.
So this is an example of, again, there's a lot of information. It's a one-way tabulation of responses. Basically trying to find out. And there's a lot of, how concerned somebody is. Here are the various issues. Various issues are here, and how concerned the people are. From very concerned, sort of concerned, not really concerned, and don't know. So you can start to see, the responses and then the range of responses based on the topic that's presented.
So this is making me think of some of our topics, and I know somebody's looking at environmental issues and what students want to learn about in schools and how effective the programs are. So I can start to see what some of the representation could look like. Although we'll probably have to work with some of you because we've said you only need really sort of one, maybe 2 to 4 people that you talk to. So you're not going to have numbers like this, 65 respondents and plus. So we won't have as much data to present. This is to let you know sort of what the different options are. And the course, again, it does prepare you for doing research in industry or going on to graduate school. So it covers a lot of things. We're not going to do them all in the course or all for this report and presentation. But this does have a lot of data. So this is more like I had for my book chapter, where I've done a scale. So you can see they're very concerned and sort of concerned. It goes in order from the amount of concern to then not as much, and then don't know, so that there's a logical order to it or a flow to it.
And if you go back one slide, Shelley, to the previous slide.
Okay.
Yeah, so this particular one that we looked at is looking at a survey of American youth. So this can be replicated for, American professionals or people in midlife or seniors, and then you can see the results, you can compare the results. But this particular one happens to look at American youth. So you can replicate this for different age groups. So then you can see, the national concerns, it's just another way, the bar chart. I mean, so let me ask the class, which do you think is more effective in conveying the information that we have here? Which is more effective? Yeah, tabular format. Who agrees with Laura? Disagrees? And does somebody want to sort of speak up and explain why they think that's the case for them? Anybody want to speak up in the chat?
I can't see it again because I'm sharing my screen, so I'm letting you do
that. We're all agreeing, but I just was asking if somebody wants to just put on their mic and talk about it. The tabular, Cassidy's saying yes, I would say the table rather than the bar chart. Roxanne agrees. Brian's agreeing. But I just wanted somebody to, I guess it's pretty apparent, but
Well, if I go back, just because this reminds me of the other one that we looked at with our toothpaste.
Yeah.
brand. So all different kinds of information we're displaying. We're just looking at how it's displayed, not what the percentages are. But so we can see the not really concerned were smaller numbers in here anyway about pollution of air and water. And use of drugs. So those were smaller than like 52 compared to 20. So not really concerned tended to be the smaller numbers. And then if we go back, and don't know was even smaller again. So here they took out the don't know and then not really concerned. So they were the smaller numbers. You can see here in the blue that it's represented as the smaller portion of the bar. But like the other one, we have to realize that that doesn't mean there. The blue is 100. It means
right, yeah.
less. So if there's a 20 difference there between 80 to 100, 100 minus 80 being 20, we know then that that's 10 or less. So it's really looking at it, kind of eyeballing and seeing, okay, so there's fewer not really concerned. Most people are actually very concerned because red takes up the most space. But we don't know exact numbers. We can kind of ballpark it. We can kind of estimate, but we don't have the exact numbers that we had in the table.
But I think what it does do, Shelley, and I agree with everybody that the other one is better. Again, back to color theory, right? In the area where people are very concerned, they're using an alarming color, right? So you think red, and then blue, of course, we all know is the most passive of the three colors. So that's where there's not much concern. So in that sense, I find it effective. Only in that sense of,
Yeah.
Alarm with color.
So for sure, it's what we saw written up as the drawbacks and benefits of both ways of representing the information. The table gave us all the details, gave us the numbers. There's no guessing, but we don't get that visual. This gives us a visual if you don't have to have all of the information, because we dropped the numbers where they said they don't know. And we have more of a kind of guesstimate situation here for the numbers, but we do have a visual that most people are very concerned about these different topics, more concerned than the ones who said not really concerned. So pros and cons of both.
Yeah, absolutely.
So So there's our summary then. Roper organization responses in bar chart format. And the bar chart, where each bar is a pictorial summary of one national concern, quickly and efficiently communicates the findings to the reader. Notice the issues are ordered differently in the bar chart than in the questionnaire. The ordering of the issues on the bar chart from those most to least concern enhances the chart's effectiveness. So we can look at it again. So they did take the very concerned with the highest numbers here, going left to right, and the right-hand side having the lowest numbers represented. Okay. Two-way tabulation, age versus extent of consumption. Again, I don't think we would have such a breakdown in our data, especially where we're looking at fewer numbers. But this allows for someone to have so heavy, medium, or light consumption. And we have age on the left-hand side. So we have less than 30 to 50, and then over 50 years old. So those ages are together. but then they wanted to break down extent of consumption for each. We can see that probably have this again as a visual for us, yes. So this one has, rather than each of the numbers, we have a color associated. So that under 30, we can see the number percentage for heavy consumption, medium consumption, and light consumption. And then for all of the ages, and then an overall total.
I mean, this one I find to be a little more acceptable, you know, assuming you don't need numbers, you're just trying to get a graphic representation of information. It seems to be fairly easy to follow. What does the class think? What do you guys think? Is this, if you're just trying to get kind of trends with respect to age groups, do you find this fairly easy to follow, or agreed? More messages below. More messages below. Agree. The stacked colors are confusing. What does she mean? Leanna, do you mean stacked colors?
That was from the previous chart.
Okay, sorry, got it. Yeah, easy to understand. Okay, good.
Yeah, I would agree that this is more straightforward than a bar that has multiple pieces of data in it. At least here you have a single bar for each category within each age.
And the ages are grouped and they're separated, so they're easy to kind of understand. Yeah.
Trying to think of where this might fit in for data in this class. I know last year we had a student looked at cell phone use, and she was looking at it as a topic of addictions. And so something like that, you might even be able to present in this way, where you have like age or gender, whatever kind of breakdown you have, but it could potentially fit into a chart like this. All right, so we've moved away from all of the types of charts into oral presentations. This is all from the textbook, but it is helpful for us because at the end of this class, so week 13, we will have our poster presentations. They're very short. It's basically just a visual representation of your work, and it's usually to share with each other and a few guests. So what we can learn from this oral presentation section, we can apply to our poster presentations. So general tasks are important for the success of oral presentations. Research the audience, know who will be in the audience, understand their backgrounds and information needs, anticipate the questions they may ask. So yeah, if you are presenting for a room full of interior designers, you would want to stress different things than maybe, depending on your topic, maybe it's a room of nurses, or maybe it's a room of counselors, or maybe it's a room of teachers. You would stress different things because you would know they'd have slightly different interests. You might even use different language with them because each profession has sort of its own words and terminology. Sometimes called jargon, but has its own language. So choose the main points of the study to be covered during the presentation while being careful not to select too many main points. So some of the data that we saw in tables where there was so much to present, you might not need all of that for your poster presentation. You might prefer just to do the pie chart, assuming that you have data that fits well with that type of presentation.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit different this year. Last year we had, obviously last year it was live, and so we had some guests that came to go through and see the different projects, and they were very impressed last year, I have to say. And they did say that, you know, they had a lot of good questions for our students, And then the point, as Shelley made, is you have to sort of pick and choose what it is you need to convey to them in the few minutes they have. You have to get their attention and their interest about your poster and your topic and your research.
It's almost like an elevator pitch, if you've heard that term before. It's getting something short and punchy that will get their attention, get them over to your poster, let you tell them what you've done, but it's not going to be in painstaking detail. Because you've been doing this for 2 years, it's really just a summary, a high-level overview. But what we did the last year when we were able to meet in person, we had some librarians come in because they were, of course, interested in the research piece and where people had found information using library resources or how you'd gone out and done your own primary research. But we also had people from the program. So we had Julie Nichols, we had, I think MJ wasn't able to make it, but we'd invited her and she was hoping to. So maybe this year we had Brad, we had Karen Kritzer. So we had sort of a handful of people from the library and then a handful of people from your industry.
In previous years, we've had other professors come from other colleges and universities, graduate school professors, and they, in the past, they've been quite impressed with the caliber of the work. So I'm sure they will be even more impressed this year.
Okay. So use of visual aids such as, we won't have flip charts, but flip charts or transparencies, slides to improve the presentation clarity and maintain audience interest. So for sure, if you're making a presentation at a conference and you're using something like PowerPoint, you don't want a lot of text. You want more a picture, and then you can talk to the picture and the picture can symbolize what it is you're talking about. But in our case, it will be picking what information is most important to go on the poster, and we'll have separate sort of little mini lectures about that, and we'll show you student examples. But when we get to that point, the visuals will be important. And so if you're sitting thinking, what will I put as a chart or a graph, not to worry, because we know that we didn't ask you to interview 100 people. We actually told you not to do that. So we know you won't have the same kinds of numbers to represent in tables and graphs. If you were given some information that you can present that way, we'll walk you through that process and we'll do that. But otherwise, we'll work with you to maybe find something even from some of the readings that you did, or find a way to put in other visuals into your report and presentation, apart from just representing numbers, but having something for that visual impact.
And remember, this is going to be part of your graduating package, right? You're doing the research. From the research, you're developing your project, you're designing a space, you're then doing the working drawings for that space. So this whole thing becomes a collective, and it's a very powerful package to graduate with.
Okay. So this is smaller to read, but this actual slide is guidelines for effective use of slides. So it has a little bit of a reminder of really what we did just look at, when the different types of charts would make the most sense. And then I guess some guidelines as to how to use them.
Sorry, go ahead, Shelley.
I was just gonna say, like, again, the word slides, we're not taking it literally as, we're not doing a PowerPoint presentation for each other. It's a poster presentation, but the same guidelines will apply. So keep the slides brief, use keywords, use bulleting, highlight key points, break up the information into a series of progressive slides. That applies for what we'll be doing, and we will have a separate class about it, but you will need to keep the poster much more brief than the report. We'll be including lists, maybe bullet points, maybe numbers, and I'd say that break up the information into a series of slides would be more into sections, and we'll outline what those sections are so that it has an organization.
And to give you an idea of how this fits into your final Advanced Studio 2 presentation, you know, I know it seems like a long ways away in April, but this research, and usually it's the findings and the pie charts and the graphs and the different graphical tools that you've used in your poster, they find their way into your final PowerPoint presentation for your final studio presentation in the front end of it. Leo and Leah will talk about that later, but this information does get put into your final studio project in the end. Not just actually physically in the space, but actually it becomes part of the actual final presentation as well.
So you'll have to let me know if anybody's asking anything. I feel out of the loop here. Where
No, nothing has been said. I just said we'll try to bring guests and we'll have poster presentations. I think they're content, or else they're not here. I don't know. I think they're here.
Just because in terms of two-way communication, I can't see the text. So
No, there's nothing else that's coming up.
So this is what I just read from that poster, but as a separate slide. So we've already discussed that. So box charts. You might have information that you want to present more as a chart. I guess that's more like the tables that we looked at. Again, jump in for anything, Anais.
Yeah, no, I mean it's getting more into, you know, presentation. So for bar charts, they're useful for data arranged in segments by months, years. Remember I mentioned, you know, you can show things by months of the year or by years, depending on how much detail you want to convey. You can choose vertical or horizontal bars, both within horizontal slide format. You can add drop shadow. So it's just basically graphic conventions on how to make things more appealing. A lot of marketing presentations will be using these approaches. Show complex facts clearly by using multiple or segmented bars. Divide the slice into a series if that improves effectiveness. The point here is you're trying to have an effective presentation. You're trying to take command of the audience. You want what you're talking about to be interesting and appealing, and the information to be clear and concise. So again, it depends if this is a relevant approach.
Okay, we more started off with pie charts. So you can use this to emphasize the relationship of the parts to the whole. So we looked at exporting textiles and which countries hold which percentage of the market share. So remembering that China had a very big part. So that was showing a part of the whole. Select a single pie or double pie, consider options such as drop shadow. So again, it's getting into more how you can make it look nice in Office, presumably is what people might be using. Arrange the slices to make your point most effectively. Divide this slice into a series if it will improve effectiveness. So we saw that the pie chart that had all of the countries, even with 2 and 3% market share, was harder to read, and that it was more effective dividing it into other for some of the smaller numbers. Or we saw with our toothpaste example, that sometimes rather than showing a whole range of years, it was easier to just compare 2 different years. So even with pie charts, potentially showing less information, but making it more effective and easier to read.
Yeah, I just wrote down, don't overslice.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. Line graphs and area graphs.
So these are used to display trends or continuous data. Decide whether line graphs or area graph shows. Select baseline and scale for maximum effectiveness. use callouts, again, graphic conventions, callouts to identify key points in a graph, divide extensive data into a series of graphs. So just trying to convey information in terms of line graphs and area graphs. You know, we've been talking more about the line graphs. The area graphs didn't seem to be as, you know, you have to decide what is more effective, but the line graphs seem to be clearer for our purposes.
Yeah, for sure. If you have information to show over the years for people to see trends, and NACE gave the example of a stock market, and so that's one example. And then finally, we have other graphics. So in addition to presenting any information, maybe in a table, maybe in a pie chart, maybe in a line graph, you can add in other images that make sense to be there, and branding for your poster or for your report. So I've seen students in your program have their own personal branding, which is great as you're about to graduate and start applying for work. If you have your own branding, that's fantastic. The other branding that you can use is the Sheridan College branding, because you're representing the college. It's work for the college. It's for a college course. So you're more than welcome to add Sheridan logos, and all of this just makes for a nice professional looking poster, presentation, and report.
And they will use that again for their final advanced studio project. They're encouraged to come up with a watermark that doesn't overpower the images, that is like a background kind of branding, as you said, Shelley. So that's important for continuity, you know, as well as just for cohesiveness, right? For keeping it all together.
Very good. So that was our last slide. I'm going to stop sharing so I can look at the camera. There. I just think it's so weird to not see.
I know, it is weird. It is
anybody or the chat, but so we just went through a lot of different options for people as a way to represent data and add some visuals. We can answer any questions or discuss anything, and then I think it would be a good idea we can have a break maybe before our little quiz and final discussion of the next part of the assignment. So does anybody have any follow-up questions based on the slides that we just looked at from the textbook?
So if they want, we can take a 15-minute break. Oh, Laura's typing.
Yeah, I know we've had the recording on for an hour, so I'm going to turn it off.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, Laura, you can turn on your mic.
Yes, please.
And I will turn off the recording.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I was just going through that slide, like the PowerPoint with all of the different types of charts and graphs. So, for example, like the information that I gathered from the interviews, it's more so like the experience of, like, so the caregivers per se, like their experience in the long-term care or day programs, and then the experience that the physicians had with residents and members as well. So how would you represent like that kind of information in like a pie chart or a line chart? Like how, if that makes sense, like if it's more so data based on experience and not with actual numbers.
Yeah, that's why we said we'll have to walk people through individual examples, because I feel like if you absolutely had to, and we'll make exceptions, present things this way, then you would need to be asking questions that will give you numbers. And so what you're saying is they talked about experiences, but if there's anything, like we've had students in the past say, people coming to this home usually stay here for this many years, or maybe even the age of the residents varies. There's this percentage or this age, this percentage or this age. So you might end up with some kind of graphic showing the age of people or how long they're there. Or I know some people are doing programming, like do you enjoy, you know, like the stretching classes, going for walks, cooking, playing cards, and you might be able to show sort of how people break up their time or what they enjoy doing. I don't know if you got anything like any of those types of pieces of information.
Well, I mean, when I was like first writing the questions, I honestly didn't think that I would have to put them into this type of data representation. So I made them based on like their experiences, like I said, and like how, for example, like how the physicians feel the members have adapted like mentally and physically, like if the programs that are available, they find that they're beneficial to the members, like stuff like that. So I feel like had I known this detail before, like my questions would have been more detailed and maybe I would be able to create these charts.
Yeah.
You know, Laura, I was going to say in the past we've had students that actually don't have the graphics. They have more written results, and that's fine too, because not every project will have the graphics that we've presented. We've had in the past some that have not had them. It's been in a different kind of more of a qualitative discussion kind of way, presented in that kind of way.
Right.
Yeah, if you don't have, if you didn't get anything out of the question up, and you wouldn't have to have a graphic if there isn't anything that makes sense to display that way. I mean, we did have people, I think, showing, you know, the person they interviewed said about, I don't remember, 60% of the people in this program, whatever it was, and then they could show, you know, the pie chart with the 60-40. And if not from your findings, if there's nothing, maybe there's something even that you read that was a number or statistic from your literature review. You could put that in as a visual.
But that would be like, so information from, sorry, you said information from research that I've done previously, like last Zen research?
We did have one student last year, just because this course goes through all of the different sort of ways of representing research, and it really is, as you said, more appropriate if you've had, say, a survey of 100 people. And because we're not doing that, we're being flexible with what it is that you present. So if it's not in your own findings, then yes, it can be from the literature. And if not that, then it can be a visual, just to add to the report or add to the poster presentation. But there might be something maybe out of what you've read even that you could represent visually, like maybe they wrote it as words, but you could represent it visually.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take like a better look into it even once we get the assignment brief, but yeah, I just wanted to discuss that quickly.
Yeah, no, we had this issue last year as well, and it's just a function of this reduced scope of work that we've been put in the situation of doing. You know, we're not able to interview, as Shelley mentioned, 100 people or survey 100 people. So it's just the reality of this current situation. But you'll still be able to probably use some of what we've told you, or again, it'll be more of a written format. So we'll go over the assignment brief, and you'll see.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. I mean, Boyana had the same question, and I'm sure other people in the virtual classroom had the same question. So not to worry if you don't have numbers, because like you said, we didn't ask you to go out and come back with numbers, and it really is qualitative research, not quantitative. So if there's something you can display, great. If not, you can maybe dig through some of the even articles that you had and find something to display. But really it's about having some kind of a visual. So not to worry, everybody will be able to come up with something. All right, should we break?
Yeah, I think so.
We'll break and then come back and do our little Socrative quiz, just as a review of what we just did, and then show you the next part for the assignment. So it's not, okay, it's not quite 4:30, so what do we usually do, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
So like,
You want to say 4:35?
yeah, sure, 4:35.
Okay.
So we'll just say, you can type it in here too. Oh, you're typing, okay. Break until 4:35, and then, yeah, we just have a quick activity, and we'll show you the assignment, and hopefully it will all come together.
See you guys in a bit.
Okay. What we can do next then is we have a very short activity to try. And I will share that from my screen again as Socrative. And then we can walk you through the next step for our assignment. So maybe what I should do is, let me go back here. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. We have stopped the recording, by the way. We recorded for close to an hour while we walked through the slides from the textbook, but I've stopped recording now. So if you go back to the content for today, for week 7, the last thing here is called Socrative Quiz. There's student login and there's teacher login. And if you click on this link, it will ask for the classroom, and the classroom is Woods 2164. So it looks something like this. I will share my screen so we'll see people's answers coming in. But you would go to that site, click on login, and log in as a student. So again, you should be able to use this on a phone or an iPad or a laptop or a desktop. There's your login, and it asks for room name, which I have typed into Slate. You can even cut and paste it. I don't know if caps matter, but it was capital WOODS 2164. And I will go on over to our, let's see if it, hopefully that order didn't matter, because we should be able to see people logging in. I don't need people to put their names. Oh, let me just stop sharing for a minute because it should let me log in here.
Cassidy's saying I've logged in. It says waiting for next activity to begin. Is that correct? Can't hear you, Shelley.
Okay, I've logged in now, so you should see the activity. Everybody had next activity. Does it show now because I've logged in? And it should show a question number 1, which is about tabular or pie charts.
They're saying no.
Okay, sorry, maybe I had to be logged in first. So sorry for that. If you refresh your screen and like log back in, it should show it, because I have logged in. launch quiz.
They're saying after refreshing, it still does not work.
No requirements. Okay, I can see that there's 19 students in there though.
Oh,
I think
right. It's working now.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I hadn't logged in. You beat me to it. Okay, so here's our first question then. I am showing our answers as they're submitted. So you should have the question for number 1. Which format, thinking back to our slides, which format is a more visual way of displaying data, tabular or pie chart? So we'll give you a few minutes to, or a few seconds, I guess, to put in your answers. Excellent. We have 20 answers already. There's 4 more people logged in. I'll give another second. Okay, and you can see let me share the screen and then you'll see the answers as they're coming in. Oh shoot, sorry. Okay, now you can see my answers here. So we can see that there were 24 people answered out of 24 people logged in, and we'll check our answers. So the correct answer was B. So which format is a more visual way? The more visual way would be the pie chart, because that was the colored sections to represent the numbers, rather than tabular being more of a table with numbers. Tabular gives more details for sure, but pie graph is more visual. So we had 79% of our answers were right, and we just had a few people who put tabular. So
Charlie,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Some students are saying they just see the loading sign and they can't see your screen. Some people can see your screen, and some people are seeing, they have to refresh their page. Let's see if it works. Yeah, some people are seeing the screen. Some people just see the loading sign. I think they had to log out and log back in.
Oh, that's frustrating. Okay, so next time I should log in before I even explain give the room number.
Yeah, now it works. They went out and they came back in, so that now it works.
Okay. I've only ever done this in the classroom live, so thank you for your patience, because I've never done this as a Zoom call or Bongo or anything before. So we'll go through. Sorry for that. Here's our question 2. So for presentation, say for poster presentation, it is best practice to present A, some of your data on your poster, or B, all of your data on your poster. So it's multiple choice, but 2 answers. All right, well, hopefully everybody can see this now, because it looks like we've got lots of answers here. 24 people answered, so let's see how we did. Excellent. So for poster presentation, we said you need to know your audience and you need to present what will be interesting to them. So it's not going to be all of your data, is going to be what will make the most sense given your audience. So the correct answer was A. You want to give what will be most interesting, and think of what you're presenting almost as an elevator pitch or a summary, the high level of what your study was, what you found, and then what you're going to apply to your actual design. And Ace, you can let me know if anybody's posting any kind of questions.
Yeah, no, there's nothing new.
Okay, so we'll move on to question 3. Here's our question. It's a true or false question for this one. Visual aids help to maintain the audience's attention. True or false? We need the Jeopardy music.
I know.
So we have 23 here, and you can think of this as like PowerPoint or poster presentation, really just any kind of presentation. Looks like we got someone extra, a couple extra people logged in here now. We have 27 logged in. 24 answers. How did we do? Woo! Yes. So true, visual aids do help with audience attention, and this is why we're walking through adding some kind of visual, whether it's a picture or a graphic to represent data from your research or from the literature, because it does help to draw people in, and it helps to keep people there with you too. Good. So I did add an explanation. This one, just for fun, I found the quote. So you may have heard the quote before, "Picture's worth 1,000 words." And this has the history of that quote dating back to 1921. First having been said as "one look is worth 1,000 words." So you can say so much in that graphic representation or with a picture that would take so much to explain in writing. Okay, next question, question 4. Another true or false. And this was just mixing up how the questions are worded. So just be careful here, because I have a double negative, which is not always the best way of asking a question, but line graphs are not a good way to display trends or continuous data. So if you remember, we did have some examples of line graphs. So this statement, is it true or false? And that statement is they're not a good way to display trends or continuous data. Every question, we're getting a few more people logged in. We have 28 logged in now. Let's see. We're up to 25. Let's see, how did we do? All right. So granted, the question was worded as a double negative, really, or not a good way. But the answer is false, so B. So 76% had the right answer there. So that means that line graphs are a good way. They are a good way to display trends or continuous data. So thinking back to Anace's example of how the stock market fluctuates and seeing things over time. And I put a couple other examples here that you might see. You had the cell phone use example, or even if you think things like climate change and temperature and increasing over time. So they are a good way when you're looking at trends and you're looking at things across the years. All right, last question. Branding your report and poster with a Sheridan logo or even a watermark or personal branding contributes to effective design, true or false? All right, so this is one of the last slides that we had. How did we do? Awesome. Yes. So did add an explanation again, but it will make it look very professional if you have your own branding or if you have a Sheridan logo added in. It's part of that visual representation and just a nice way to show your affiliation, either that you're part of Sheridan or if it's your own personal logo, just that it's your work. It's something that you produce that you're proud of. So it is a good part of the poster and the report. So that's it. And we had a couple of questions with 100%. So hopefully that was a good way to review some of what we went through in the slides with you. So I would stop sharing, but Anais, do you want me to open up the rubric from my laptop here? I can. So we want to look here at assignment rubrics and assignment 2 results. All right, so I'm sharing. You're muted there. Do you want to unmute Anais and speak to the
Sorry,
final piece here?
sorry about that. Yeah, I was just mentioning that in the announcement, we noted that this assignment is actually due next week, week 9, on the Tuesday, November 17th.
We're week 7 this week.
Sorry, 2 weeks, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Sorry, in 2 weeks on the Tuesday, but not the Monday. So we always like to give you that extra day because we know that people are on different timelines. So time zones. So it's, yeah, Shelley, thank you. Because at Humber it's week 8. So we're in week 7. So in week 9 in 2 weeks, it's due on the Tuesday, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time now, because daylight time is now over. So here is the assignment. So we wrote a very short assignment brief with the marking rubric. So the research results assignment brief. So using the data collected from your interviews, surveys, etc., develop a well-structured, clearly written, and factually accurate results section that will be a part of the final report. Ensure that the design of the presentation material is visually appealing by including visuals and/or colored graphics where possible. And you saw that in our lecture that colored graphics were actually very beneficial. The results section is the recording of factual results without any interpretation. Remember, interpretation will come at the end with your findings and when you come up with the 5 key ideas for designers. At this point, there should be no interpretation. Just to repeat, the results section is the recording of factual results without any interpretation. That's very important. Every year, sometimes students will forget. So just make sure you remember not to interpret. You'll have your time and your chance to interpret later on in the paper, but not for this submission. Interpretation will be included in the final summary at the end of the report. So that's to come later. So in terms of the evaluation, I guess we have to move it up a little bit, Shelley.
Mm-hmm.
So the results, so it's a very straightforward marking rubric. I mean, the whole thing is worth 35 marks. 15 marks for the first part. You know, is it well structured? That's worth 5 marks. Is it clearly written with proper grammar and spelling? That's worth another 5 marks. And are the results factual? So are the factual results free from interpretation? No interpretation here, just to say it again. So that's worth 15 marks in total, 5 marks for each of the segments. Then the next criteria is quality of presentation of material, including visual representation of data where appropriate. That's 10 marks. So we put where appropriate. We fully understand the challenges that you will have. But as Shelley mentioned, you can look back to your lit review, other research. We will help you and guide you here so that you can come up with something. But again, for some of you, it'll be easier than others. But this is looking at presentation quality with visual representation of data where appropriate. Then finally, thorough written and or visual description of the results found, and that's worth 10 marks. The whole thing is worth 35 marks. And yeah, Mahak is asking, it is not a poster. The poster is the final assignment at the very end of the term. We will talk about the poster in the coming weeks. This is still part of the report. This is the results section of the report. Good question. How long should this section be? I don't know. In the past, it's been, what, 5 pages, Shelley? 3 to 5 pages, I think, on average.
I mean, we could open up one of the samples just to look at it now,
Sure.
But next week, we're going to look at some articles, published articles, and look at their results section just as examples from published content. And then we're going to open up more student examples and look through that. So you'll see samples. But if you want me to look quickly, we did open up, under content, you should be able to already view.
Yeah, they'd like to see a sample, they said. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's student work, assignment 3. All these sections will build into the report and then finally into the poster, but the poster is not till the end. So yeah, here's some student work. So it's available, it's posted, it's all unlocked so that you can view it. And it looks all sections. So that was 3 pages, that one.
Yeah, they're usually not that long. But again, I would say a range of 3 to 5.
Yeah, we're not like giving a number of words required or anything like that. But so let's look at this one.
I mean, we always tend to say it's as long as it needs to be. You know.
That was 3 with some graphics, and then actually, so it had a title page. So it's 5 pages when you add in all the graphics as well. And this had an observation because at the time this was written, that person was able to go and do some observation. So they have some graphics and have their, 5 pages. So 3 to 5 pages is a good range.
But I think you guys also saw the example that Shelley just showed of the pie chart that's more in 3D with shading, and that's pretty effective as well. So use all your graphic tools that you have. So I think you guys will be fine in that regard for sure. A couple of people are typing.
Okay, here's where we were.
We were there, and then we just had some notes. Cite sources using a consistent style, avoid redundancies, and there's some more items that I can't, proofread your work.
That was it, yeah.
Okay, questions. One of the examples has no graphics at all. We need to include graphics, right? Like the pie chart. Mahak, only where applicable. We will work with you to try to make that happen. But if it is not possible, that will be fine. If it's not possible, then it'll be more of a written results section. Boyana says, so if we conducted qualitative research, do we have to include graphics here pulled from lit review, previous research, or do we need to pull visuals only for the poster? So I don't know if you want to address that one, Shelley.
Well, what we're looking at here is the rubric for the results section of the written report. So even though the slides talked about visuals for presentations and we extended that to poster, this rubric right here for the 35 points is just for the report. So where possible, it's best to include some kind of visual. So even if it's hard because you don't have something in your findings, but I'm thinking yours is the public school and the private school, correct? So you might have something that you could do a comparison and even have a bar. I know it's different if they're talking about kind of where students gather. It's hard to get kind of numbers if they haven't given you numbers, but first I would look if there's anything you can represent from your own research, and if not, then an image or even numbers taken from the literature would be fine too. But yeah, we're looking for it in the report as well.
Okay.
Sorry, Shelley. The report is this. This is what you're talking about, the results, right?
This is a results section to go in a report, yes.
Okay, so when you're saying you want visuals, and let's say I don't have any numbers and I have to pull them from the literature review or previous research, you want that for both this as well as the poster?
Yeah, I mean, we're not really looking at any assessment here for the poster yet. We're just building first on the report, but correct. We're looking to have visuals for both, but this rubric is on board. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they would have sent you anything that you could include as a visual. In the past, students were able to do site visits and they did sometimes have pictures, or they maybe took something from the website of the organization and just put a reference under it, like the link of the organization, so that even if you get some kind of image from one of the schools that you want to include, that could work. We'll have to be creative.
Shelley, there's a lot of questions coming. I wonder if we should show, I know it's premature and we hadn't planned to do this. I wonder if we should show one complete report, because we're getting a lot of questions about, not a lot of questions, but from certain people asking, is this research section to be added to the proposal we wrote last term? I want them to understand. I said we were completing it now. So I want them to understand that, and I think if they see it, they'll understand it better. I want you guys to understand that you are developing this report with every piece you complete. So you're not writing a new report. This is a report that you have been building. You have an introduction, you have a lit review, you're building it with every piece you develop. I think Shelley will pull one up. She'll pull up a final one to show you.
I don't know if we have a final one in here. If we have to go into a different year. Oh, there's results, and that must be it there.
Yeah, maybe open that one, yeah.
So creativity through the senses. Yeah, this is very long.
The appendix is a lot of it. I don't want them to freak out.
Yeah. So there's the abstract. We'll get to that eventually. That's just the high-level summary that we'll write. And then introduction. Overview of the literature. So this was all from Design Research 1. This wasn't even done in this course, but it was submitted as a part of the package. So that's from Design Research 1.
But remember, the overview of the lit review is a bit of it's a bit of a tightening up of the lit review. So you put it in, but you shorten it a little bit.
Yeah, so they found the different themes that were coming up from the different articles, and then wrote the different summaries. So here's the results and data analysis. I mean, you'll be able to go through it on your own and actually read it and see what's there. I'm just kind of showing you what the sections were. So here they were able to make a bar graph. What phrase do you feel best describes the word creativity? So this would have been number of people who answered in these different ways. On a scale of 1 to 5, how creative do you currently feel? You listen to music to boost your creativity. So they did have yes, no questions, and then they were able to get percentages from the number of answers. Do you watch videos with sound? Yes, no, sometimes. So they had a lot of pie charts and bar graphs. And it looks like this particular student presented most of their questions with a visual representation for the answer, but this was before COVID, and they were able to go out and do some observation.
We've had lots of comments. I've been typing away, Shelley.
Okay.
So questions about, are we revising last semester's paper? So I wrote down as appropriate. Last semester was not a complete paper. It was pieces of, and this happens every year at this point. It's hard to explain, but last semester it was the lit review and the proposal. Those are pieces that can be abbreviated, adapted, but they will come into this final paper. So yes, Laura, you only hand in this 5-ish, 3 to 5-ish, 3 to 5 page section, which is the results section, which is due in 2 weeks' time on Tuesday and week 9. The whole paper you will hand in week 13. Or week, yeah, I guess we have to decide. I think it's we put down week 13 at the same time the poster is due. We may have made it due week 12. We'll have to double check, but it's in the topical outline. That's when the whole paper comes in, and the last piece after the whole paper is the poster, which Shelley and I have been talking about. It's a summation of the key ideas, graphically represented and also written in text for what would be typically a poster presentation. Can we add information? Mahak is asking, can we also add information from research through articles? Or is it supposed to be only the research we did on our own? Yeah, you're going to put in your oh, yes. Is that for the graphics? Graphic part? Yes. You can add information from research through articles if you're trying to create a graphic representation. The lit review was last term. I think that's what you're asking, but you can maybe put on your mic and explain it further. For week 9, yes, you only hand in the results section, I said. And Laura's asking, is this final report our third assignment? Yes, it is. It is. Absolutely. The final report is the putting together of all the pieces that you have done last semester and this semester with, as Shelley mentioned, will show you how to write the abstract piece. You'll write that piece and put it at the front end. And then you will have your findings section at the very end with the 5 key ideas. Then you'll have your appendix with all of the, you can have your interview questions there. You can have extra data and all these things at the back end. We just showed you a 105-page, just showed you a 105-page document.
Maybe I should share my screen and look at the topical again, just so we do see what's left, because it shows how it all builds. And I didn't go past a certain point of showing because it's beyond the point we're at for week 7.
But I think maybe I don't know, I guess maybe they want to see what's coming.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
So this is our topical, and so we're already week 7. So you can see, looking at what's left, it's all, of course, individual work, but you can see here under lecture, so we're calling it like a mini lecture, but that's where we'll get into the abstract, and then basically piecing it all together, because you've already done the lit review And after week 9, you'll have done your results section. So by the time it comes time to submit the final report, you are just pulling together what you've already done. And we're leaving the abstract to the end because that's a summary of what the research is, what the findings were. So we leave it to the end, even though it's the first thing you read in the paper, it's easier to write it at the end once you've already done all the data collection and you've written up your results and your findings, or we're calling it a, not really conclusion, but like your 5 takeaways that you would incorporate into your drawing. Does that help looking at it there?
And then we've said that it's, we've said that the report is due in week 12, just to give you a chance to then, finish that report and then just focus for the last week on the poster.
So we haven't been going through all of the articles every week that are listed here, but what we'll do is next week, we'll look at some articles to see the results sections as examples, and we'll look at, in other weeks, the abstract, just to see what these look like in publications. And then we've opened up some of the student work, and we can look more closely at some of that next week too.
Comment about, so this project is worth 35% more than the final report. And I said, no, the final report and poster are together worth 35% as well. We see the final report and the poster, Brian, as one and the same, because it's a different variation of, it's a summation of the key findings of the report. So so that's the way it works out.
Yeah, I mean, by the time you submit it as the final, you've already received marks for the different portions as well. Poster, yeah, I think, okay.
Yeah, I think that the misunderstanding is, see, the reason maybe they're wondering why this section is higher than what they're perceiving as the final, because the final has elements that have already been marked. Remember, the final paper has your lit review that's already been marked. It's got your proposal that's already been marked. It's got your results section that's been marked. You're adding the abstract and the conclusion, which are the findings. You're adding your appendix, and that's why the whole compendium, the whole complete report is worth 25, with the poster an additional 10. This is, remember, assignment 2 is new work. It seems like it weighs a lot. Well, I don't know. It's always been like this. I don't know. It was set up this way.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, I think we're just confused because I don't know, I don't want to speak for Brian, but he was saying that the assignment 2, this assignment is worth 35%, right? Mm-hmm. And then saying that it's worth more than the final report, which is 25%. That's correct, right? You're saying because components of the final report are already done.
And have already been marked. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I have another question. Assignment 2, is there like an assignment brief that's maybe more in depth, just because it is worth quite a bit, and I personally feel like I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be including in there, like how to break it down. You know what I mean? The brief is like 1 paragraph long, so I'm just.
Yeah, so so that's a good question. So we just developed the brief because in the past we would put up student sample work for review. Maybe we should do that, Shelley, just make that, it's visible now. Did you?
It is, yeah.
So
I think this, sorry, go ahead.
But no, it just, in the past, these questions haven't come up. So we appreciate that you guys are bringing them up, because it'll make the course better every year. So we appreciate that. But we can expand on it, but we thought it was self-explanatory. Yes.
It is clear, but like, for example, the sample you showed us, like, she has 3 to 5 pages worth of stuff. So I'm just wondering, like, how did she break that up? You know what I mean? Like headings, like I don't know, you know what I mean? Typically we get a brief that's like, how do we divide this information and present this? Right? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess you're just relating the marks, and you want. I see where you're coming from. I mean, we can, you know, after this class, we can expand it further. We never had before, but we appreciate the comments, and we appreciate that you want to do well. So we'll take a look at it after class, and we'll post something tomorrow.
Yeah, I would say we have one more week in between too. So next week, we want to look at some articles and we want to look at the student work and go through it. So hopefully after that, it will be clearer what that results section looks like. As for the one that we looked at that was so long, you have to keep in mind that that was before COVID, and they were able to go out and do, in that case, it was observations at a Tim Hortons. So they had more data to work with and more data to present, but we're not expecting more than 3 to 5 pages. And we'll look at some student examples. They actually listed the questions and the answers as a part of the results section. Otherwise, we'll look at how to write it up, and it can be looking for common answers that gave you and sort of themes that came out of what you heard, and then writing it up by those themes. So we'll look at a few examples, and then hopefully that will answer some of these questions. As for the grading, I would agree, like the grades have been assigned to the different sections before you put it all together. So for the final submission, you will have already had that grade built in. But we were counting 10% for poster, but if you look back, if I share my screen again, it's actually 10 plus 5, because it's 10 for the poster and there's a rubric for it. But it's also 5 for making a presentation. So it's on the second page here, but 10% is for the poster. So we'll be looking at the content and how it's displayed. But then there's also 5%, which in the past was in person and now will need to be virtual, but for just presenting it to the group. And it was never come up to the front of the class event. It was people walking around the room, seeing the posters and just being able to ask questions, and you being able to say, this is what I did this term. This is what I learned. This is what my design's going to be. Really kind of a summary level. So the poster and presentation are 15, if that clarifies things.
I'm just typing for, I should just talk 5 key. Okay, so for example, so we had a project, a PTSD project a few years ago, where the research was about what elements helped somebody recover, and what could be, and they designed a PTSD recovery kind of center for their final advanced studio project. So the conclusion, so what happened was they took the information about plants and nature and the kinds of things that appease and reduce the symptoms and help these people recover and rejoin society. And then based on the results, this student designed green walls, living walls, designed a shooting range to help deal with anxiety. All the design elements that were, the major design elements that were incorporated in the final studio project, the Advanced Studio 2, were derived directly from the results that he got from he interviewed 2 subjects, from the interview of 2 subjects, and the kinds of things they needed and the kinds of support they needed. So that's how this research finds its place in your studio project. And then when you're presenting in April, a juror might question you and say, well, you know, why do you have a living wall in this building? What's the point of a living wall? Why do you have a green wall? And then you would say, well, based on my research, I have found out that this really helps to reduce the symptoms, you know, helps to reintegrate these people back into society, or, you know, those kinds of things. And then the juror will have nothing more to say, is what typically happens. So that's the reason. That's the point. The point is to get this information to a point where it is beneficial to a design standpoint. Otherwise, design, you can make all kinds of arbitrary decisions when you're designing because you like something. I mean, some of us are intuitive designers, some of us are more technical designers, but this is a way to kind of frame the direction of your design based on research. Does that help? Good, thanks, Brianna.
Yeah, going back to one of our first weeks, we watched a video from British Columbia, short YouTube video, a healthcare setting, and they had people, they had counselors, they had someone from Indigenous community, they had clients and parents, they had health practitioners, and they were doing focus groups to get research data to help them with the design of the space. And so this is what we're trying to do in our own scaled back way for your topic, but during a pandemic. So we do have some challenges that wouldn't normally be there. And we're just kind of trying to be flexible to adapt the assignment so that you get the same experience, but we just don't have the same expectation for number of people surveyed and amount of data that you'll have to present. So I feel like unless there's more questions now, we did go through everything that was on our agenda for today, and we'll be sure next Monday, whoever can attend in person, well, virtually live, great. If not, we'll record as we always do, and we'll post it under recordings. And we will go through some examples with the results section. And then with that, plus your rubric, it should become clearer the different ways that you could approach it by looking at student work and looking at what publications have done, so that for the next week, you'll have something to hand in. I mean, you could start working on it now. You can start looking at the student examples that are posted, but we'll take even longer looking through the results section of different articles. Very quiet group now. I can, at least speaking for myself, I can say if you have a question during the week, even before class on Monday again, you can always reach out by email or book a time. But you also have an extra week this way that if you haven't interviewed somebody yet or haven't gotten all your results back, you still have time to be gathering the data, because you do have 2 weeks until you have to have it written up.
Laura's typing.
Sorry, I just want to clarify one thing. Sorry to bother, guys. And is the thing you just said, the conclusion will have 5 key ideas for designers. You're talking about the final report, right? Like at the end of the report.
Yes, at the end of the report, yes.
Okay.
Remember what you're doing for week 9 is a piece. So just imagine you've got this big report and you're inserting pieces in consecutive order, and that's what you're doing right now.
Yeah. Okay, no problem. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Mahak is typing. You're welcome.
All right. Well,
We know this is it's something different than what you've done before, so, and it's a little bit complicated, but honestly, you just follow our steps and you'll get there. You'll get there, and it'll be great. You're welcome, Katja and Brian and Kihong. You're welcome, guys.
well, reach out if there's any questions in the meantime. Otherwise, finish up your your research, and next week we'll look at some results sections.
Yes.
And then you have another week to go before they're due. So have a good week, everyone.
We can stay if anybody has any private chat. We can stay in the chat. Otherwise, those who are done, as Shelley said, are free to go. You're welcome. You're welcome, guys. Have a good evening. It's already dark outside. You're welcome, guys. Hello.
Oh, hello, Anis. Can you
How
hear me?
are you?
Hello. Somehow I cannot find the assignment 2 on the slate. All
Oh,
the information is about assignment 3. So, are you gonna post later?
no, it is posted. Shelley. Oh, you must be. Are you? Where are you looking? Because it's posted. Are you looking under content?
Yes.
Are you in the right classroom? You must be because you're here.
Yeah. Contents.
I'll share my screen again. I can show you where it is.
Okay, guys. Okay, thank you.
So under here we go. So it's under assignment rubric,
Oh,
and then it's called assignment 2 results.
okay, I see right now. Okay, thank you.
So that's what we were looking at earlier. Sure.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So right now we are interviewing. How many people would you like us to interview?
The $1 million question, right?
Yeah. We were saying as a number that anything sort of between 2 and 4 will give you a few people to kind of compare and contrast what they say. But as long as those 2 to 4 people have a lot of experience and can speak from years of experience, then you're getting that breadth as if you had bigger numbers because they can speak, for a lot of people. So that's the number we sort of said was 2 to 4. I know it sounds small, should be manageable, but if you need help to find someone, let us know.
Okay, perfect. And then for this assignment, it's basically reiterating all of the information that we asked them and then making a chart.
Yeah, the results that you've gotten from what you asked them. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank
Without
you.
information.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. So it looks like we have one person still here.